The Cherokee probably left the most significant mark on the Ozarks region of all of the non-indigenous tribes. The Cherokees, and again, those of you who are natives of the Ozarks, and maybe some of you who aren't, how many of you have family traditions of at least one Cherokee ancestor in your family tree? Yeah, it's pretty common especially I've found, traveling around the Ozarks and talking to people over the years, that invariably, if there's any sort of tradition of Native American blood in someone's family tree, it's almost always Cherokee. And it would make sense. They were the largest group to come through the Ozarks. Many of the people, as we'll see next time, many of the people who settled the Ozarks from east of the Mississippi, the white settlers, had lived in Cherokee areas and amongst the Cherokee before they got here, so they were familiar with them and could have intermarried with them. Probably the number of Cherokee ancestors is exaggerated, but certainly it's the Cherokee are most closely associated with the Ozarks of all the groups who were moved in here from east of the Mississippi. The Cherokees' first settlements were actually in the delta part of Arkansas, in northeast Arkansas, again in the late 1700s. The Cherokee, by this time, had probably become more like the white settlers than any of these other groups that we've talked about. They had adopted many of the trappings of Anglo life, even down to the log cabins. Some of the Cherokees were slave owners. Many of the Cherokees were of mixed race, especially a lot of their leaders were mixed race, and so there was it was very common for the Cherokee leaders to be fluent in English and to live very much like their white neighbors by the late 1700s and early 1800s. In the 18-teens, many Cherokees came. Now this predates the Trail of Tears, right? These are ones who came by their own volition. People who beat the Trail of Tears Cherokees by a generation or more to come over to the West. Many of the Cherokees who came in the early 1800s were getting away from white society, felt that they were being pressured and kind of pushed out by this white encroachment where they lived in Georgia and Alabama and North Carolina and Tennessee, and were just hitting the road before they were forced to do so. And the federal government encouraged the Cherokees to move west of the Mississippi to kind of get out of the way of these white settlers who were flooding their land in the early 1800s. In 1817, the U.S. government went so far as to grant that big tract of land that I was talking about earlier that becomes known as the Cherokee Cession or the Cherokee Reservation in Arkansas, between White River and the Arkansas River. And here it is. The squiggly line on top is White River. Arkansas River's down here, and you can see sort of these parallel lines on either end. This was Cherokee territory from 1817 until 1828, when the Cherokee basically traded it in for a chunk of land in Oklahoma and agreed to move out there. But many of the Cherokees settled here. You can see most of the Cherokees settled in the southern part of this on the Arkansas River, just on the southern fringe of the Ozarks or even beyond the southern fringe of the Ozarks. And they would invite other Indians to settle in other places on their cession. Remember, I talked about the Shawnees settling on Cherokee land. Well, their settlement was up here in northern Arkansas on Cherokee land around Yellville, where it is today. And so this was a big piece of land for just a few thousand Cherokees, but it was a place, kind of a safety valve, a relief valve for those coming from back east.